I would like to welcome you to this third video on the crash course for Python. Now, in the last video, I was actually just introducing accessing characters within a list, and I was actually showing you how to access it based on the index of the character within the list. And I showed you how to access individually and how to access a number of these characters based on their index by using slicing. And I said initially it was 4 here, and I said that you can access it by saying please give me the characters that are positioned at index 1 all the way up to index 4, and it will include in character which is available in index 1 up to 4, but not included the character which is at the position 4. Then I said that we can actually say all the characters after from 1 to the end of the actual list you can access, and this is how it actually showed. So when you run it, it's actually showing you that position 5, it's actually the last character in that list, and then from 1 all the way to the end, so it will take from 1 to 5, and it actually displayed it here for you. And this is a very handy way of actually accessing. And I also said that it's very important because when we talk about dictionaries, lists, arrays, and all these similar structures, we will be actually accessing them in this way. Now we have one-dimensional list, and that's why we're only accessing within the index of the first position. Once we have a list that contains nested lists, then we will be able to access it by a different method, and I will go into that in a little bit. Okay, so the next thing is actually I want to introduce the use of a function called length. And what that function will do, if you call that function and you pass a list to that, it will actually count the number of characters in your list, and it will give you their total number. And in this case, I have actually created a list saying this is a sample message, okay? And it contains 25, including the white spaces. Therefore, it will include the white spaces in this case. If I remove the white spaces, then it will give me the exact length of the characters, okay? So it actually take into consideration the white spaces here. And then I called the function len by calling it, and I wanted the result of that to be assigned to a variable, and I called it length, and then I printed the length. So if I run this code, it says 25. Now if I remove this first white space and if I run it again, it says 24, which means it actually take into consideration the white space. So it's very important to understand that when you are looking. Now, when we are dealing with natural language processing, we don't want these white spaces because it's file size and processing time, because we need to go and process these white spaces and so on. And I don't want, or you don't want, because you are actually going to use too much processing time just to process white spaces. Therefore, we can actually remove these white spaces. So you can check the length of your file before you remove these white spaces and some words, the common words that you need to remove in natural language processing. I will go into that once I introduce natural language processing further on in the course. I will show you how we remove these words and how we check the length of a file before and after, just to show you how many words we've actually managed to remove or how many expressions we managed to remove from a file, and it makes life much easier for processing. Now, Here I am actually calling in the next cell some methods on strings. And what I introduce here is just some of these methods. I want to introduce text upper and text lower and text strip. And there is a difference between upper, lower, and strip. What we are doing with upper, we read the string, and then we take all the letters in that string and we convert it to upper letters. If we are using lower, we will read that string and we take all the characters which are upper and we convert them to lower. Okay? And strip is different. Strip, what it do, it will actually remove all the white spaces, because you remember in the previous cell, to remove that white space, I actually moved it by hand. Now, if I want to automate that, then I will use the method strip. And in this case, all I need to do is just call the method. I don't need to pass anything, because I am calling the strip method using the string itself. So I'm saying string dot strip. And in this case, what am I stripping? What am I moving the actual white spaces from? I am moving it from this string, which is called text. It's the same for upper. I am saying text dot upper. I will not go and convert everything to upper. I will only convert the content of that string, which is text, into upper or into lower. So you need to understand how you call these methods. You remember here in the function, we call the function by naming that function and then passing something, because functions, they need some input for them to return something else, because functions, they take something and they return something at the end, and we will talk about that when we start talking about functions, how we create them, how we use them. Okay, so in the next cell, I am actually going to talk about formatting strings. Okay, and this is important, because when you are actually writing something, you want to be able to write it in a certain manner, and sometimes you want to insert something into some text, and this is what I'm doing. So I have two variables. I have a name and an age, and I want to actually, if I want to iterate, if I have a list which actually has 10 names and their ages of these individuals, then I can use this formatting message within a for loop, so I can iterate, and I will be able to actually print. The first one is actually, my name is Alice and I am 30 years old. Then my name is Naeem and I am 65 years old. My name is Doris and my age is 63 years old. My name is Ali and my age is 18 years old, and so on. So I have to have all these lists which actually containing all this information, and I am going to iterate through it. Now it's without iteration. I just want you to show you how it actually works itself, and then later on we either put it in a loop or you will practice with a loop by yourself, as long as you understand how we do it. Now to do that, I need to format the message using these two variables, which is age and name. And I said my text message is going to be my name is, and it's going to be something. And in place of that something, I have actually put two curly brackets. And then I continued after that, and I am something else. And I put two curly brackets there, years old, and I closed my string. And then I said dot format, i.e. I am calling the format function using that string which I have created by using the dot, and then I will pass the variables I want to pass there. And what variable I want to pass? I want to pass name and I want to pass age. And look, in this case, it will take whatever order I put. If I put the age first, it will take age. If I put the name first, it will take the name. So if I execute this, see, it actually says name and age. I am Alice and I am 30 years old. Okay, now if I change this to say age and this one name and I run this, it should say my name is 30 and I am Alice years old, which means order is very important in this case. Okay, so therefore if I take this back and put it in the same format as it was, then it should actually be correct. And we are actually, in this case, taking care of the order. Now, if I don't want to worry about orders, then what I will do, I will introduce a keyword. Okay? And we will talk about keywords later on when we talk about dictionaries. But I would introduce a keyword. And in the format here, what I did, I introduced a keyword and I said 1 equals name. And I can say that 2 is equal to age. And if I insert 1 into the first curly bracket, set of curly brackets, and I insert 2 into second curly bracket, and I run this, then it actually tells me my name is and 1. Whatever is equivalent to 1 will be inserted there, and I am brackets, and whatever is actually equivalent to will be inserted there, years old. And as you can see, it actually correct. It says I am Alice and I am 30 years old. Okay, so it's correct. Now, in this case, I don't have to worry about order, how we actually entered it here, because I can change this and I can put 2 and I can leave 2 in that one and then run this. And what does it say? It says I am 30 and I am 30 years old. My name is 30 and I am 30 years old. That means order now does not matter. Whatever you put there, when you put the keyword there, you actually force the content of that keyword to that position. And that's very important. So I will put this back to 1. Then we actually have it correct for you when you come back to the Jupyter Notebook when I share it with you. So in this case, also, it's not just about not worrying about the orders, but I can also repeat as many times as I want, and I don't have to worry about it. And what did I say there? And in the third cell here, I added some more text and more, and I put 2, or I can put 1, or I can put a number of these, and even though only 2 in this format, I can repeat them as many times in my text as I want. So it's very important for you to understand this. Now we don't care about orders. We force the content of a key on any of these positions within the formatted text. So if I run this, you can see my name is Alice. I am 30 years old and more. So I put 30 again. I could have put Alice again. I could put anything I want there if I have it already as a keyword in my format. So now we have actually looked at the format. We need to look at how we index our lists. And I already talked about accessing a list by index earlier on, and I talked about how we index individual, or we use slice to actually access. Or if I have more than one string, then I can access these strings separately in different ways. So I'm going to repeat something here that we did earlier, so please bear with me. It's for you to understand better what we are doing. The first one, I am actually showing you again how to access individual index within a string. And what did I did? I actually named the string and I added this square brackets, and I put the index I want to access. And if I type that, it should actually give me the index or the letter. It should return the letter which is sitting in that index. And if I run this, it's simple enough, and I'm sure you know how to do it because we already explained it. Now, the next one is important because we haven't done that. If I add a minus there, that means I am starting not from the beginning of the list, I'm starting from the end of the list. Okay, so I am starting from the end and I'm going back to the beginning of the list. And if I say -1, that means I want to access the last character, or second to last, the last character, sorry. If I want to access the second to the last character, I will put -2. If I want to access the third from the last character, I will put -3, and so on. Therefore, this is how we use it. So I actually had an example here, and I said last character and second to last character in the text, which we have already created, which is this text list here. Then it should return for me the characters which is sitting in the last index. And in here, it will return to me the second to the last index, the character sitting there. So if I run this, it gives me in and O. If I change this to actually say 3, then it should actually give me the third, not the second. And as you can see, it actually went and gave me the third character sitting from the end. Okay, so this is how we access it also, and this is very important because if I want to create a loop where I can iterate over contents of list and I want it in reverse order, I can use this method in my condition to actually do this starting point, and it will iterate in reverse and it should be done. And it's a nice way of actually doing something like that. Slicing, I have already showed you this earlier also, where I told you that we can slice our list or strings as we want. And I said in the first example, I want to substrings. I want to take parts of that string, not all of it. And I want to take from string 1 up to string 3, but nothing. We even write for here, but we don't mean we include the fourth position of the index up to 3. We will include just 1, 2, and 3, and 4 will not be included. So we are saying up to 3, but not including, up to 4, but not including 4. The next one, I said, you take all the index up to 3. And every time we say up to something, that means we don't include that something. So what happens here, we'll take 0, 1, and 2, and we should include it. And in the last one, I'm saying starting from 3 all the way to the end of the string, please give me what's sitting in these index location, and it should give me the result. And I'm just going to talk about the last one, starting from 3. And if we go to the string itself and we say it's 0, 1, 2, and 3. And so it's starting from 3. We always include starting from whatever we have defined. However, up to, we don't include that up to. But because in this one here, we didn't specify up to what, that means we go all the way to the end. Okay, and then we stop. So that's why it actually gave us all the way to the end. Now, if I want to actually iterate over the content, take, let's say, 0, then 2, then 4, then 5, and so on, then I need to actually use double colon, as you can see there, to say every second character, and I just said 2. That's why every, and then I have to specify every how many. Okay, and in this case I said 2, and if I run this, it should give me the 0, 3, and 4. and 4. Okay, now if I change this to make it 3, and if I run now, it should actually just give me P and H. So it actually gave me number 1 and it gave me number 4 and so on. If I change this into 1 and I run it, it actually gives me the full thing for every index. I am actually changing it. So if I keep it as 2 for the sake of this Jupyter Notebook, you will see how it's actually done. So it's very simple, but very powerful at the same time way of actually selecting a particular character within your list or your string. This is no different from when we are actually using lists. That's why I actually said that. So next we are actually going to look at lists. You remember in a previous example, I actually went and created a list manually. And to create that, all we have to do is just to open square brackets, and we can enter some letters or characters or integers or floats, but we separate them by commas, and that will be the creation of a list. I can go and assign this into a variable. Therefore, this list will be created and assigned to something, A, B, or a word, whatever it is. So the first one is actually creating integer lists, and in this case, the list contains integers, as you can see, and all I did is just separate these integers by commas. Or I can create a list that contains strings, and to create a string, you have to have either single quotes or double quotes separating the content of this list. So in here I have a list that's actually made out of strings. Okay, and sometimes you will call this nested list, because a list can be just one cell or one position, or it could be a number of positions, or I can have a number of these lists created, and then I can access these lists as I want them. And you will see later on we will create data frames from different lists or dictionaries as we want. This is a powerful way. So if I run this, you can see that it's actually created. Now, can you see in this third list here, I am actually creating the list where I am using in here not one character, but a number of characters, i.e. a full string. And the string here is a word, which is apple or banana or orange or grape. And if I want, I can assign this to fruits, and then I can actually display my fruits as that. And it's very simple, so it's a nice way of actually. Now I can access this list by index, and that will be index 0, that will be index 1, that's index 2, and that's index 3. So it's the same as we did with the list, with the string earlier. Therefore, now I am saying I want the content of index 0. And we know the content of index 0 is actually apple. Therefore, I will open square brackets and I will put the index number I want. So it will give me apple. And then I repeated the same command for accessing index 1. And if I print these, it should give me apple and banana, as you can see there. And I can also now access from reverse side. I can go to the last index, and the index after, and the index after, and so on, by defining a minus, or by inserting a minus in front of the index that I want to access. So the last index, the second to the last index, the third to the last index, and so on, and we can come back in reverse, and you can see it actually works for, this method actually works for list as well as it works for strings, since we saw it earlier in the string. Slicing method also works in the same manner. I showed you how we do that in string. We can apply the same methodology to actually the list in exactly the same way. So if I want to access index 1 all the way to index 3, in this case, we will not include the content of index 3. We will only include 1 and 2 in this case. And in here, I'm saying take everything up to 2. Okay, so that means you will actually take 0 and 1. And in the last one, I said you start from index 0 and you go all the way. So you exclude 0 and 1 and you print everything. So if I run this cell, it's actually very simple. And as you can see, it's a nice way of accessing your list as we showed earlier for string. Now, if I want to add something into my list, then I can add it without a problem. But in this case, I need to actually have the list already created. And then I will say, I want to insert in index 1. I want to replace or modify the content of that list. So, and I want to change it. If we go back to our list, originally, what did it have? It had apple and banana. So what I want to do here, I want to replace the banana by kiwi. So I said, I want index 1 of that fruit list to equal kiwi. That means now it will actually, kiwi will go and it will replace apple. So banana, sorry, and banana will no longer be in our list because now we change the content of the list. It will no longer be in the list. Okay, so if I execute this, then it should actually change my list for me. If I come back here now and try to print my list, okay, and where did I actually, banana I called there. If I execute this, I should have kiwi in place of banana because banana doesn't exist anymore in the list. Okay, therefore it's gone. And if I execute the one after that, you can see it's actually gray and we don't have an orange. We didn't ask for bananas and so on. Let's see here. Actually, we have kiwi also. Now, if I want my list to go back to what it was originally, then I need to go back here and I need to run this. And it means I bring my list back to what it was. Now, when we go talk about tuples later on, you will see, even though it looks like a list, you will not be able to change the content of a tuple. And when we create a tuple, we do not use this type of brackets. We will use the actual parentheses for creating the tuple. That's for later on, not for now. Okay, so I go back to actually changing the content and I will run this one here. And you can see now I actually now this is after appending. And then what did I do? I actually insert at a specific index pair. So I went also and inserted. So in here, I replaced. In this case, I wanted to add. So what I said append to my list. So I have a list and I want to add another item to that. So I need to use a function called append to do that for me. And I will pass to that function the actual content that I want to append. And in this case, I want to append string, which is melon, into my list. Therefore, it should actually go to the last position in the list, and it should add another in there, which is the new content for that list, which is a melon, which we have defined in append. I can also go and insert in a particular position, and I use the function insert, and I will pass to it two items. One, I will pass the location I want to insert in, and then I will pass to it the string that I want to insert. And this way I can include pairs. So I have apple, kiwi. Now I don't have that order. I have apple, pear, then kiwi. So I have added one more, but in that position. So the previous position will be shifted up, and that's what happened. So position 1 is now become position 2. The content of position 1 becomes content of position 2. So two ways in this where I can add. One, I can use append function, and the other I can use an insert function. And in both cases, I need to pass the actual list that I want to add into my the actual string that I want to pass into that list of strings. Append will always go to the end, and if I am inserting, I need to say I need to insert it in certain position. So if I change this to 2 and run it now, the position should be completely different. But of course, I didn't change the list. Let me go back and change my list here to the original list. Then I will go and replace the kiwi, which is in this list here. No, I didn't. It's actually the one before. Where is it? Where did I insert the kiwi? It's here. Okay, insert the kiwi there. And now, if I come and run this, it should actually change. And you can see the pair was inserted in the position number 2, not number 1 as we had previously. So this is how we can actually do that. Now, if I want to remove something from my list, it's easy also to remove. And to do that, I will need to actually use before removing an element. Now, if I want to remove an element here, I can call the element that I want to remove. So if I run this removed element fruit, and I want to remove number 2 from there, so we know that it's actually 1, 0, 1, and 2. Therefore, it will remove that number 2. So if I say remove, if I run this, it should remove number 2. And if I want, if I bring it back to 1, because the second statement is actually related to 1, which is the kiwi. So if I run this again, I have kiwi in position 1, and I want to remove that position 1. So it should remove it. Now, if I come to actually call the same fruit and say I want to remove kiwi from it, it should go and try to remove it, but it should come back and say, well, it doesn't exist anyway. So how can I remove it? So let's see. Run, and it actually says it's actually removed it from the first. So I don't have this, but when it comes to running this here, it wanted to remove kiwi, but it says to me kiwi does not exist. Remove X, and X not in the list. But if I change this here to say remove pair, it should actually remove. Okay, now if I run it, it should actually remove pair without a problem. Element kiwi is not in the list because I actually said it's not in the list before. So it's actually, now I removed pair, and it actually works. Now, if I come to remove kiwi here, it should say to me kiwi is not in the list, because in here when I tried to remove kiwi, which was actually before, it actually went into an error, and I don't want it to actually move into an error. If I actually, because I have 2 pairs, let's run this. Let's try this one here. What do I get there now? Orange and pear, and okay. So if I want to remove kiwi from it, it doesn't actually exist kiwi. So if I change this to kiwi again, and if I try to run it, I should have an error. And once you actually encounter an error in Python, it stops in Jupyter Notebook, because we don't include any error handling. However, if I change this and I put it as a condition that remove kiwi for kiwi in fruits, and I put that in the second cell here, I use an if kiwi in fruits. If it's true, then we execute that condition, which is remove kiwi, and print fruit after removal is that. Else, you can type kiwi is not in the list, and that's true. So let's run this, and it says kiwi is not in the list. However, here, when I tried to remove kiwi and it wasn't, it actually gave an error. So this is one way of handling errors, and it's very important, and I will have something later on in which I will talk about error handling, because error handling is very important. If we don't handle errors, then our algorithm, our code will stop and it will not continue. And we want, even though we encounter errors, to overcome this error and to continue running the code. So this is one way of actually encountering the error, by putting a condition. If it actually exists, it's okay. If it's not, then true, which means you actually continue without stopping. So if I want to concatenate, then I can also concatenate fruits by using the concatenation. And if I want to include more fruits in the list, then I multiply it by the number. As I did with the string earlier, we can do exactly here the same thing. So if I run this, you can see that I have added melon a number of times, and I have added, I have added manga and pineapple, and then I have repeated the string twice. I can repeat it as many times as I want. Next, I want to talk about nested list, and that's when things become exciting and things become important, because when you are actually working with machine learning, you are actually going to be working with nested lists, nested arrays, and nested dictionaries, and so on. Therefore, it's very important to know how to create these lists, the nested list, and how you actually work them, call them, manipulate them, and so on. And that's very, very important. Now, the video is actually going to be stopped here.